Bolche Mocharja Golir Guji on Laurelin Shaw is Misha. Antone, this is Live Irish Myths. You're all very welcome to the Mythical Ireland Library. I'm Anthony Murphy. This is our Monday night live stream. You're very welcome wherever you're watching in the world. We are live streaming on Mythical Ireland YouTube channel, which is Mythical Ireland at youtube.com/Mythical Ireland, and on the main Mythical Ireland Facebook page, facebook.com/Mythical Ireland. So please do feel free to say hello if you're dropping in. Tonight we are talking about what myself and Tom King were up to last Wednesday night at Loughcrew, which was looking to see if there was intervisibility between Loughcrew, specifically Slieve na Calliagh, and a monument, a very, very, very well-known monument complex in the county of Sligo, which is the Carrowkeel / Keshcorran complex. I hope that you will enjoy tonight. I don't have a script, but I have a good idea what I want to say, and I hope that you'll find it interesting. Certainly, the post that was shared on Friday about the revelation seems to have attracted a lot of a positive response. Tonight, saying hello is Rebecca Elizabeth of Era. Well, hello, Rebecca Elizabeth of Era. This is Anthony Murphy of Era. You're very, very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Elaine Dent-Lingenfelter is saying, honey, I'm home. Elaine was laughing at my joke earlier on. We will share that in a while when the room fills up a bit. And Scott Doherty says, tonight's going to be a good one. A fun one, even. Hello, everyone. Well, we'll add a little bit of comedy, I hope, with a joke or two. Fergal Campton, hello to the Loughcrew crew. Fergal, you're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Liam Kavanagh is on the Bog of Allen. It's not often you can say that I'm on the bog, but you're not on a toilet. Liam, you're very welcome. That was a joke. Terrible humour. You'll have to get used to it, I'm afraid. But you're very welcome. And you would be in the county of Kildare, not far from the rising place of the River Boyne. Helen Hirsch Chatter is in the house. Greetings all. Indeed, hello, Helen, to you. Rebecca says, my area here, intrigued, is that Loughcrew or is that Sligo, I wonder? Mandy McCurl is in the house. It's another sunny evening on the Isle of Mull, fantastic, which you seem to have stolen from us because it was sunny earlier. Now it's completely cloudy. So can you please give it back? Mandy, you're very welcome, as always. Adrian Beglin is in the house. Evening, Anthony and everyone. Well, I hope you're very well. And I wonder, is the lady, it's Karen, isn't it? Is in the house as well. Watching on a different device, perhaps. Kathy May Deo is saying hello. Happy to be here. My day off on holiday. Excited to join the whole session. Hope all are well. Brilliant stuff, Kathy May. That's fantastic news. And I hope you enjoyed. Judy McQueen is in Oregon. One of our many, many Pacific Northwest followers. That part of the world. He just seems to have a love affair with Ireland, which is perfectly okay. Roisin McDonald is watching from Kawakawa. Is it? Kawakawa Bay, New Zealand. A very good morning to you. It must be early there. Roisin, how good of you to join us. Fantastic stuff. And a big hello from all of us. Hello! Round to the other side of the world. Laurie Fogarty. I met you a few weeks ago with Glenn and Cameron. Hello, Laurie. Ah, yes, indeed. How are you? And so good to see you. I hope you got home safe and well, and everyone else, and that you're in good form. Brilliant stuff. Bernie Courtney is in Castlebar and is really looking forward to this episode. Well, I hope we don't disappoint. Janet Moran is saying hello from a damp Boston. Coda is saying hello, by the way. He's like, Anthony, I can't believe you didn't. Will you stop talking till I say hello to the guests? A very good afternoon to you, Janet. Paul Garron is in a foal of Rathtow, which is Ratoath in County Meath. Paul, what a pleasure. Paul and I have a vibrant interest in aviation and are regularly conversing on an almost daily basis about all things airplanes and aviation. Paul has a bit more expertise than I have. I'm a sort of an enthusiastic amateur. He knows his planes, I can tell you. Barbara Barney is in the house. Hello, Barbara. Good afternoon. Hope you are keeping well and in good form. Kathy is in New Jersey. Kathy, what part of New Jersey, I wonder? I was in Princeton in 2019. And yeah, fine business and lovely to see you. Good afternoon to you. Connor Curran saying perfect for a stormy night in Sligo. Wow. Maybe it's on its way, is it? that's why it's kind of gotten dull here. And it's very blustery today, but we don't mind because it was 20 Celsius and the sun was shining most of the day. Alan Hoskins is saying, hello from the increasingly autumnal border between counties Tipperary and Clare. That is Ballina, Killaloe, or the home of Bale Boru. Hope all well. Good form here, Alan, and I hope likewise. Barbara Murphy is in Tucson, Arizona. A very good afternoon to you, Barbara. Catherine Flynn, Energy Healing, is in Sligo under Carrowkeel. Brilliant stuff. I think you'll enjoy this, Catherine. I certainly hope that you will. Just me, says Adrian. The wife's at work. She'll have to watch back later on, but we mentioned her anyway. Nick Eska Casterton is in the house. Thunderstorms over here from back over the Irish Sea. Loving it. Very invigorating. Brilliant stuff, Nick. Wayne Bird is also in the house. Wayne, a very good evening to you. Hope all well. Kathy May is saying hello, hi to Coda. He is definitely in full voice. Anyway, Julie Fowler is in Albuquerque. Brilliant stuff. And I wonder if you've ever heard of Joe Van Cleve. Joe Van Cleve is a very, well, in typewriter circles, he's very well known. He has a YouTube channel about typewriters. And they have a type-in Albuquerque, which they call Albuquerque, which I think is brilliant. Anyway, you may not. And if that's the case, then fine, no problem. But Julie, you're very welcome to Live Irish Miss. Desiree Riley is in the house. She is known to her friends as Desiree, but here the mispronunciation is forgiven, I hope. And Desiree, good to see you. I hope you're in good form. Jolene Marl is in Oregon, another in the PNW. Jolene, how are you? And you're very welcome. N. Neil Harden is in Huntington Beach, California. Another West Coaster. A very good middle of the day to you, Neil. Hope you're in good form. The Full Irish Gary says, another fine day on the sod, which is his catchphrase. Gary, I hope you're in good form. John Main is saying greetings from a wet and windy Belmullet to all the Tua. So we have Mayo and Sligo telling us it's wet and windy. So I think it's perhaps the order of the evening. Helena Breen is saying hello. A very big welcome to you and, of course, everyone else. Laura McCormack is... saying greetings, Anthony and Tua from West Limerick. Very good evening to you, Laura. I hope that you are comfortably ensconced. The Angel Barboni's in the house. It's been a while. Well, it has, but look, the door of the library is always open, and you're always welcome. Angel, good to see you. Mariana Dunn is saying Banachdy from Alexandria, Virginia, where we are celebrating Labor Day. Well, a very happy Labor Day to you all. Maybe that's why Kathy May is off. She doesn't have to labour because it's Labor Day. How ironic is that? Brendan Byrne says, it's not that I am early, it's just that I never left from last week. Brilliant. I love it. Kathy is in Westville in South Jersey. Thank you, Kathy. And greetings to you. Kathy May says it's sunny in Western Washington. Rained last night, but refreshing sunny day now. Brilliant. Good stuff. Jennifer is in Maine. Hello, Jennifer. Very good afternoon to you. You're welcome to the stream. Indira Stefaniana. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that surname correctly. Please forgive me if I'm not. High noon in Hollywood, Anthony. High heat, and now I can let my mind cool in the healing green. I was speaking to a gentleman who was in Southern California yesterday, and he said the temperature was to top out at 109 Fahrenheit, which I believe is 43 Celsius. Oh my God. I told him, all you can do on a day like that is strip off and climb into the icebox and shut the door, you know? Angel is also from South Jersey, so there's some commonality there. They're all saying hello. Rebecca is saying Boyle, Caves of Kesh /inner/earth, all along the spine of Boyle. Starts at Rathcrohan area, runs through Crohan, the spine and back of Boyle, and through to Carrowkeel, 15 minutes away, opening in the crust of the earth at Loughcrew. All are connected, yeah. And I think that's a karst landscape, isn't it? When a Carrowkeel itself is limestone, isn't it? Albert QWERTY, lol, says hope. Yes, brilliant. Yes, you have to, if you're interested in typewriters, Joe Van Cleve is one of the most brilliant YouTubers that you could find. Anne McCallum is in the house. Hope everyone's in good form. Today is better weather-wise than last Monday's horrific storm. 100 kilometre an hour winds and torrential rain plus thunder and lightning. Wow. Yeah, let's hope that's a rare thing. Elmo Mack is saying hello from Carlow. Good evening to you, Elmo Mack. You're very welcome. Stacey Herman Lawrence is in the house. This is perfect for a rainy day in Ohio. Brilliant. I'm glad. Nora Gaffney O'Connor has joined us. Have you been in the sea today, Nora? How are we doing for time? We're great. Nora, you're very welcome. Always a pleasure and a delight to see you. Lexi Erickson has to work today, so catch the rest later tonight. Well, here's the official hello, which will be recorded for the video, for the replay. Lexi, have a great day. Who are we? Miss Tom King is in the house. Good evening, Anton, all the mighty to a soft day in the Boyne Valley, working away at the forge in the fading twilight. It's story time. I'm looking forward. Yes, and of course you have a part to play in the story. Chungus Khan is in the house. Trinonoa from sunny and temperate Maryland, USA. Giagwich to a Conastashiv. Tommy, Gama, August Tufain Chungus. I am great. How are you? You say my name perfectly, says Indira. Brilliant! Wow, that'll be a first, definitely. Lots of people saying hello to each other, which is fabulous. Calvin Clown, I assume you'll be showing the prehistory guys Carrowkeel when they come over. Actually, no, I will. I'm missing out on that. I am with the prehistory guys in the Boyne Valley. So looking forward to meeting them, by the way. Yvette Tillema says it's Labor Day holiday here in the US. Pouring rain this afternoon in the Adirondacks. Well, I suppose this is the perfect excuse to be kind of ensconced in front of the screen with maybe a cup of tea or something stronger. You know, Rex Fortenberry is in Louisiana. Sorry about the margarine post. Don't worry. That was funny. I mean, I am a humorous guy, as well, I think I'm funny, but loads of people smack their face and groan when I say what I think is a joke. But anyway, and never mind. It's heaven in the sea at the moment, says Nora. It's lovely and warm. Brilliant. Glad to hear it. That is us up to speed with the comments. Let the comments commence. You're all very welcome anyway. So look, where do we start? At the beginning, one says. Well, the beginning is 23 years ago. I began visiting megalithic sites in earnest 23 years ago in the year 1999. You know, that's where it starts with me. Like, have you got all night and half of tomorrow? You know, D. McKiernan is tuning in with a cuppa in hand in County Roscommon. A very good evening to you, D. You're very welcome. So let's make that bit short. Let's not stretch this out any longer than it needs to be, you know. But it all does begin. You know, the first visit to Loughcrew was probably about 23 years ago, and you know, what do I say, Joe O'Keefe? A very good evening to you, Joe. Barb Jordan is in the house. You know that it's always impressive. You know, that landscape is amazing. The Loughcrew Hills are the highest point in County Meath. They're kind of stuck in. If you were able to see the county borders, you can't see them except for on maps, you know, and on Google Earth. But if you were able to actually see the county borders, you would see that Loughcrew is in the far northwestern corner of Meath, close to where it meets the counties of Cavan and the counties of Westmeath, which actually meet the border of the three counties, Flame Red 24, very good evening to you, in the lake of Loch Sheelan, which is the one visible from Cairn S, which is what we're going to talk about. Anyway, for years, you know, going up there with the camera, and, you know, I've been taking photographs of this whole time as part of this epic adventure into the past. And, you know, on a clear day, Loughcrew is just incredible, as are other places in Ireland. For instance, Ardagh, Briley in Longford, where I was on the last day of July for Bilberry Sunday and the celebrations there. You know, as are the views, for instance, from Knocknarea, you know, from Slieve Gullion, from Sugarloaf. Sugarloaf, I don't think, had a cairn on it. From Sea Fin, for instance, you know, even from Ishnock, which isn't a particularly tall hill. The views are fabulous, you know. But there's just this incredible view to the mountains in the north and the northwest. And as they go to the northwest, they get hazier and hazier and sort of drop off into the distance, into the haze. I've been going up there for 23 years, and I've never been able to. It's not that I've never been able to. I just realized that there was a huge deficiency in my knowledge, which was I can't identify what those hills are, those distant mountains. I remember one time saying to somebody, "Is that Ben Bulben in Sligo?" Because it has this sort of interesting, sort of steep, sort of wedge, or this steep drop off, whatever you want to call it. And they said, no, that's much closer to us. That's in County Cavan. Turns out that's Cairrowkeel, which straddles the borders of County Cavan and County Fermanagh, thus also straddling the border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. And that's actually quite a distance from Slieve na Calliagh. So I'll back up a little bit just for those of you not familiar with the landscape. Slieve na Calliagh is actually a range of 4 hills. There are 4 hills, and there's a fairly substantial complex of cairns up there. There are at least 31. There probably were more that were destroyed. There are some that are partly destroyed. Some of them are in reasonably good condition, considering they're over 5,000 years old. Some of them not so much. So it begins on the west with Cairn Ban, which basically means the White Cairns. The next hill to the east of that is the one called Carrowkeel, the Speckled Rock, also called Slieve Rua. Now, if you want to know why it's called Slieve Rua, the Red Mountain, the answer to that, I think, the proposed answer to that is in my book, Mythical Ireland, New Light on the Ancient Past. Then the third hill is Slieve na Calliagh, which is also the tallest of the 4 hills. That's the one with Cairn on the top. Cairn, the hag's cairn with the hag's chair, the one that is aligned towards the equinox sunrises. So that one is very well known. And then the last one, or the fourth of the complex to the east, is the one that is today shrouded with trees, which is called Patrickstown. Now, Patrickstown undoubtedly is a more recent name, a name attached to St. Patrick and Christianity. Monica Regley's in the house. Hello, Monica. Very good evening. So Slieve is also in the house. A very, very good evening to all of those who are joining us. So that gives you an idea of the complex. Now, I need to show you an image which I didn't put in the initial blog post, which I did share afterwards. So you have to give me a moment while I just find this image and then share it. And I hope that this may help to explain something that's really very important about what we found. So myself and Tom King, I just took it upon myself. I was like, I need to go up to Slieve na Calliagh, and the specific purpose of that was to ascertain whether, let me get my thoughts together, was to ascertain whether the Carrowkeel / Keshcorran complex could be seen from Loughcrew. Now, it has previously been stated by a leading expert in the sphere of archaeoastronomy and the intervisibility of passage tombs that the Carrowkeel complex is not, that is definitively not visible from Slieve na Calliagh. However, as many of you know, there is a serious intuitive streak to some of my work. And the question was bugging me. It was like, no, I have to actually observe this for myself. It turns out that I decided on Wednesday. I was in Sligo the previous Saturday, and I had visited Carrowkeel, and I had taken photographs with my drone of Keshcorran and Carrowkeel, and so the thing was all fresh in my mind. And I took the decision on Wednesday morning. I looked at the forecast and I said, I'm going this evening because it's clear. It's going to be clear and dry. So it's not going to be raining. It's not going to be cloudy. And it looks like there isn't too much haze in the atmosphere, which is very important for long distance or the checking of long distance alignments. I decided I was going to bring the giant binoculars. So hang on, I'm going to just give me, please, one moment. Bear with me for one moment while I'm going to share the screen. You may have seen this image if you were following the social media and you saw this. Now share. Share. What am I sharing? Screen 2. So hopefully you will see this now. They are the. I hope you can all see that. They are the 25 by 100 Celestron binoculars. So if, just as a matter of interest, for those of you who are interested, I mean, for astronomy, binoculars are fabulous. They're not as powerful in terms of magnification. So they don't show close-up views of Jupiter or the craters of the moon the way a telescope would, but they're much more comfortable and they're great for sweeping wider views. they also help you to see better because you're seeing double instead of single, you know. So that they are the binoculars. And that is a picture that was taken by Tom King on Wednesday. On Wednesday morning, I reached out to Tom and I said, I'm going to Loughcrew this evening. Do you fancy coming? And he said, yeah. And it was fabulous. I actually want to acknowledge Tom for his company and for all his help on the evening. And indeed for he spent a lot of the time taking photographs. And it's such a wonderful record of what was a wonderful evening. And he even brought a flask of tea and a fruitcake. I know. Don't even mention, Anthony. You must be a fruitcake to be climbing hills and watching sunsets and waiting till nightfall to take pictures in the dark. Yes. So Tom, I appreciate your help in that regard. So I want to show you something that's very important. Did you all see the binoculars? Yes, you did. I see. D. McKiernan is west of the Shannon. Hope life's treating you well. Very good, D. And I hope likewise. Adina Sparks is coming in late. Hope I didn't miss too much. No, we've only just started, Adina, so don't worry, there's no major problem. So here's an image that is from a paper published by the archaeologist Jean McMahon. Some of you will know Jean McMahon was the author of a booklet about Loughcrew, which was, until recent years, the one and only publication really widely available at Loughcrew until the locals at Loughcrew published that wonderful book in colour. So I'm going to show you this, hopefully. So this is a plot of the orientation of the passages. Coda is barking again. Apologies for that. A plot of the orientation of the cairns. I should, preface this by saying not all of the cairns at Loughcrew are open. For instance, Cairn D, which Conwell did try to excavate, doesn't have an immediately obvious passage. It's still buried. If there is a passage, and there probably almost certainly is, it's still buried under the cairn. There are some cairns that are badly damaged, and it's not always immediately possible to discern the alignment. Where the orientation is positive, you will see that in fact, I don't know if you can see my cursor. You have Cairn Bon. There's a cluster of cairns there. There's a single denuded or partly destroyed cairn on Carrowkeel. This is Slieve na Calliagh here, and this is Patrickstown. You can see, I think, immediately from that the majority of the orientations are to the eastern aspect. So in the circle, you can see this cluster of orientations towards the east, a single orientation towards the south, which is Cairn W. You can see that in the map here. And only two orientations towards the west. One of those is Cairn V and one of those is Cairn S. Now, when I say the west, I'm saying the entire, if you think about the west being from south through west to north, that entire hemisphere, as it were, or half of the horizon, from south through west to north, 180 degrees of view. There are only two cairns in the entire complex that point in that direction. Now, Ken Williams of Shadows and Stone has pointed out quite rightly that Frank Prendergast proposed that a partly destroyed cairn on Patrickstown, I think Cairn X1, if I'm not mistaken, is in fact oriented to winter solstice sunset pointing to the southwest. So possibly 3 of 31 or 32. I think that might make it 32 if I'm not mistaken. So you can see less than 10% or around 10% or just a little bit less than 10%. 1 in 10 oriented to the west. All of the rest oriented between north and south, but facing the other hemisphere or the other half of the view, which is fascinating, I think. Cairn V, so you'll see one of these is Cairn V, one of these that's pointing, well, they're not pointing west, they're pointing actually what you would call west-northwest, between west and northwest. Cairn V, Ken Williams, again of Shadows and Stone, a very good friend of mine. Yes, indeed, we are being spammed. You know what to do, folks. Get on there and report any spam posts. I'll do that now in a moment. Sorry, I wanted to. Apologies. Open with. There we go. Yeah. So Rosa Arvidsson, we're not interested in your sermons. Thank you very much. So if you would please take them elsewhere. And that's not an anti-religious sentiment. This is not the forum for it. Thank you very much. Ken found on the summer solstice this year that, in fact, what happens at Cairn V is that it's oriented such that it points to summer solstice setting sun, but that setting sun rolls down the side of Cairn T. And if you check Ken's wonderful Shadows and Stone website, you will see that, in fact, he has photographs of it. Fabulous discovery. What I'm saying is that Cairn V does not have a view to the distant horizon. So if we take the X1 alignment out of the equation for the moment, Cairn S is the only one in the entire complex that actually looks to the distant northwestern horizon, which is, I think, very interesting. So that is important, I think. Anyway, the purpose of going to hang on a second. Now I'm going to do that while I'm not sharing my screen. Ali is in Tucson and is happy to be here. Ali, you're very, very welcome to Live Irish Myths. I hope that you enjoy the live stream. I'm just trying to find this spammer and just ban them. Oh, and the comment just has disappeared and I can't. So maybe if some of you may report that comment as spam, and please, so that we don't get spammed for the whole lot. John Kelly's in the house. And I'm just making sure that I'm not missing anyone else. Yeah, the main purpose of going there was to bring the giant binoculars, the 25 by 100s, up on top of the hill, and to find out for myself what's visible and what's not visible, you know. That was the main. But in the background, as with all these things, there's a hunch, you know. I'm serious. There's a hunch. It's like, yeah, I want to find out for myself, you know. Nothing more than a hunch. And the want and the need and the desire to ascertain, you know, whether or not those far distant cairns in Sligo are visible or not from Slieve na Calliagh. Lucas is saying good evening. Hello, Lucas. You're very welcome to the live stream. So that was the purpose of the trip. So I set up the giant binos and set them up in front of Cairn S, in front of the passage that points in that direction. Now, the fact that Cairn S points to, I'm just gathering my thoughts and making sure that I don't get ahead of myself. The fact that Cairn S points to the Carrowkeel / Keshcorran complex is not in doubt. And this is easily demonstrated using Google Earth. And I'm looking for that image that I can actually show you while I'm talking to you. And of course, I'm struggling to find it because they're in different folders. One moment, please. Actually, I can show you, right? Do you know what? I can open Google Earth and show you, right? Just give me a moment. Apologies for my lack of joined up thinking here. Again, I run this live stream with no assistance. This is not a TV studio. This is not a major TV production. I don't have staff, you know. Just let me just set this up. I'm going to show you this in Google Earth so you can see for yourselves. The fact that Cairn S points to Carrowkeel / Keshcorran is not in doubt. And I'm going to show you how it's easy to demonstrate this. The other thing is to say that Keshcorran and Carrowkeel are considered part of the same complex by archaeologists, who regularly refer in the literature to the Carrowkeel / Keshcorran alignment, or sorry, Keshcorran complex, not alignment. Keshcorran is the tallest of the peaks. It's slightly higher again than Carrowkeel. Now, I just want to make sure. Now I'm going to start sharing again. Screen 2, share, and show on stream. It takes a second just to load. Okay, so here's a zoomed in view of Slieve na Calliagh, and we are seeing here Cairn T is the large one, the Hag's Cairn. The Hag's Chair is this curbstone on its northern end facing towards the north. We see we're aligned north here. So it was Eugene Conwell who lettered the archaeology, early Victorian or era, or 19th century archaeologist, who gave the cairns their letters STU. This is V and this is W. Now V, as I said earlier, has an alignment facing back this way towards the northwest. So if I could just quickly draw a line roughly showing what happens, it's pointing northwest to the setting of the sun at summer solstice. That's really interesting. You see that box that says ruler, line, path? I can't see that. Oh no, okay, you can't see it either. That's because it's on the other screen. Never mind. Excuse me for being an idiot. For summer solstice sunset, and as I said, when you're in Cairn V, the summer solstice sunset appears to roll down the side of Cairn T, but there is no view to the distant horizon because Cairn V is slightly lower in elevation than Cairn T. So basically when you're at Cairn V, you cannot see to the far northwest, which you can quite clearly from Cairn S, which provides a completely different view. So here here's one I prepared earlier. I've prepared this for you. I've drawn, you can see the passage here of Cairn S. This is the passage in there. Actually, let me just, oh no, I won't bother taking the pin off. The pin is kind of important. And so if you zoom out and you follow that red line off into the distance, woohoo-wee, across all that, there's Loughcrew. Remember I said earlier on, you've got Meath, you've got County Cavan, and you've got County Westmeath. And very close by is the County of Longford. So this alignment looks across parts of County Meath, parts of County Cavan, parts of County Longford, back to Cavan again, and off into Leitrim, a part of Roscommon, and look what happens in the distance. It passes over the Carrowkeel Keshcorran complex, or points to, roughly speaking, that complex. It seems, now look, this is, I have to a caveat here, this is not a scientific method. This is like what you would call a poor man's method. How do we ascertain the direction in which Cairn S points? Use Google Earth. Zoom in, have a look where the passage points to, and bring that line into the distance and see. So as far as I'm concerned, Joe Butler is in the house. Thank you, Joe, for sharing the stream, and you're very, very welcome. Good afternoon to you. You can demonstrate this. It's not rocket science. It's not maybe a scientific method, but it's easy to see that, look, it points in that direction. It's not that difficult to see. Now, this is a distance. Now, if I zoom out completely so you can see the whole of the country, Cairn S Loughcrew would be considered in the east, in the Boyne Valley. Look, there's the River Boyne there. It's actually closer to the Blackwater, which feeds into Loch Ramor here near Virginia and Cavan. But it is considered to be in the sort of extended Boyne Valley area. It's in the east, Ireland's ancient east, as it were. Keshcorran and Carrowkeel are definitely in the west or the northwest. And of course, the Sligo complex, Sligo, Michael Quirk, the woodcarver, in the forthcoming Mythical Ireland film, which is viewable by patrons, says that Sligo is the most she place in Ireland, or the most fairy place, at fairy being a very poor translation of she, being the most she place. And if you go up to the Coolera Peninsula, you have Queen Maeve's Cairn on Knocknarea, you have the Carrowmore megalithic cemetery, you have cairns on the Ballygawley Mountains, etc., etc. A very, very rich megalithic country. This distance from Cairn S Loughcrew to Keshcorran Cairn is 94 kilometers, which is 58.5 miles. Now, as I said, first of all, you have an expert who says the Carrowkeel complex is not visible from Loughcrew. Then you have other people chiming in saying, well, there's the curvature of the earth to be taken into account. It doesn't matter because of what's to come. Give me a moment. So I set the binoculars up, and there's this view. I'm just trying to find a wide image of it. Here we go. Can I share? How do I share this? Bear with me for one moment. And apologies that I haven't got. I have the images ready, but I have to sort of display them on the screen one at a time. I have this image which was taken, I think in 2017. Let me just share this. Where is it? There it is. So I'm just going to show you here. Apologies for the delay in. So this is a low resolution, but this is the view towards the north, west northwest from Cairn S, and you can see, I hope, running through that view is Loughcrew, that lake that we spoke about a few minutes ago, that where the borders of the three counties meet. It is this portion of the view. So you can see here there's a raised area with trees, which partially obscures the view of Loughcrew. It is this area of the view. I was scanning from these mountains. So if you look to the right of this image, outside of this image, you'll see a range of mountains extending up to Calliagh, as mentioned earlier. But there's in the distance, there's a range of misty hills running off into the distance. And you're saying to yourself, where are they exactly? Well, I noticed in one of the images, I noticed that I took a while back, a couple of weeks ago, I noticed wind turbines. And I suspected that what I was looking at was the Arena area, which is, I'm not sure if it's in, let me just, I'm not sure if it's in Sligo or if it's in, no, it's in Roscommon. So this side, a little bit to the east of the Carrowkeel complex. And I was kind of intrigued by that. I said, right, okay, if you can see that far, maybe, just maybe, you can see a little bit further. Anyway, a zoomed in view of that is the following. Hold on till I just show you this. A zoomed in view of what you just saw there. So what I needed to do, as well as bringing the giant binoculars, was to bring a telephoto lens. That's a 300mm lens with a 2x converter, so that the photographs are actually taken at 600mm. So this is after only a minute or two sweeping with the giant binoculars. Remember that it's so comfortable, and the binoculars collect so much light that what you see in the binoculars is much, much better than what you see through the camera. But anyway, this is a camera image of what I saw last Wednesday evening in the company of Tom King. Another reason that we were there in the evening is that the sun, as it goes down, backlights the distant hills so that they come more into silhouette. In the morning or the middle of the day, they may not be as visible. In fact, they are not as visible. So that was another purpose to going in the evening towards sunset. Anyway, have a look at this image. So this is a zoomed in image. You can see Loughcrew in here just about, and those trees that I showed you a minute ago. And on the distant horizon, so there's two or three intervening hills. These two, this one and this one, are both in County Longford. And just peeping over the top of them, I caught sight of this, ridge in the distance. And I've described it in the blog, and you can read all about this observation or discovery on the Mythical Ireland blog. That's mythicalireland.com, and go to the blog, and it's the first post in the blog. And I said, wow, okay, that's a distant hill. You can see by the haziness of it and the lighter colour of it that it's much more distant than this hill in the middle distance. I think this hill is maybe something like 30 to 35 miles away. So I knew this one was much more distant. But the clincher for me, if you bear with me for a second, the absolute clincher was I was pretty sure that I could see on its right end, which would mean its northern end, what you might call a blip or a rise. See that there? and I think I circled it. I did, and I created this circled image for the blog. And this hill with this blip is, I am now 99.9% certain, with very, very little doubt, this is the hill of Keshcorran in the Carrowkeel / Keshcorran complex. So that is, let me just bring Google Earth up again. Beyond the Carrowkeel complex, there's the Carrowkeel complex there. Cairns G, H, K, etc., E and F, Cairn B. But over to the west, then there's Keshcorran. That's the mountain with the cave complex in its western side. Sorry, that's not the one. Duh, Anthony, go further. The Keshcorran caves on its western side. But it has, and it's also called King's Mountain, which is interesting, a lone cairn. And look at the profile. If I go to layers and turn on terrain, terrain is on. Look at the profile, right? Look at the profile. It's like a long, sort of reasonably flat or very slightly convex hill, but it does fall steeply away here. Actually, there's a better way to show this. Bear with me again for one moment. There's a better photograph that I think demonstrates what I'm talking about, which is a drone photograph taken the previous Saturday when I was actually at Carrowkeel in the evening time, having completed my day of chatting with Michael Quirk and interviewing him for the Mythical Ireland film. So bear with me one moment while I bring this up. So I hope that this shows what you're looking at. So there is Cairn B at Carrowkeel, and in the distance, this is Keshcorran. And you'll see that the top is not quite a plateau like the Carrowkeel, like the brick leaves, but it's only very gradually sort of, rising. And then you have the blip, and then it sort of falls more steeply away just after the blip. And I think if you compare that with, of course, I can't show you that other image now. If you compare that with the other, hang on, just try and get the two things up side by side here. This one open with photos. If you compare that with this image taken from Cairn S, I think you'll agree that the profile is fairly close. Now, bear in mind that what you're seeing in this image here is a wide angle 24mm view from the drone. The drone has a fixed lens. It's 24, it's wide. Wide tends to make things look smaller and stretched out. Telephoto tends to sort of bring things closer together. So, but I believe that we're seeing exactly the same thing here. I have, as I say, looking at the alignment in Google Earth, looking at the mountaintop apps that show you what's visible, looking at the azimuth, looking at the photographs, and seeing what I saw in the binoculars, I can only conclude that that is Keshcorran. Now, in one of the other images I noticed in the meantime, this one, pardon me for all the flip-flopping around. If I zoom this in, now you'll see, look, even though this is a 24 megapixel image, you'll see that when you zoom in, it loses detail because it's just everything is so far away. You'll also notice, I hope, just here, that there's also part of a ridge or a mountain visible just in that little gap there. I think that is part of the Carrowkeel Brickleaf Mountains, which would be, if you look at Google Earth, would be, sorry, apologies till I get this back to this view, slightly closer, right? But if you look at the alignment, slightly north of the Keshcorran, even though, if you took that a red line out of it, Keshcorran is actually further north. These ones are further north of the alignment. So I think that's what you would expect to see. You would expect to see that the Carrowkeel Ridge is a little bit further to the north than the Keshcorran one, even though it's closer. But it's lower. So this was the cause of tremendous excitement. I'll not tell you a lie. This was the cause of tremendous excitement. I was absolutely The main feeling actually was absolutely mind blown. And so what it comes back to is these cairns, Cairn S at Loughcrew, which points to Keshcorran, and Keshcorran, which is the highest of all of the cairns in the Carrowkeel Keshcorran complex, are actually intervisible. Now, that comes with a caveat. The caveat being that to the naked eye, you can't. Unless you're superhuman. I don't know. Maybe there are some people who have the vision of an eagle or a hawk, and who can see tiny, tiny details at immense distances, This required modern optical equipment to view. This is a zoomed-in view from a 24 megapixel camera on a 600mm lens. It's quite a long way away. To the naked eye, I don't think there's a single human being who could sort of look from Cairn S and go, aha, there's Keshcorran, folks. There it is. Look, I see it. And you have the added difficulty of what I call the skim of butter effect, that this Keshcorran ridge is only barely, barely visible above the tree line on that hill in County Longford. But you have to zoom out. So, this is a very magnified view into the distance. And there's another caveat to that, or a counter argument to that, which is, do you need to absolutely see the cairn that you're orienting towards or not? And therein lies the key to this mystery, which we may not be able to answer tonight, and I don't think I am able to answer tonight, to be honest with you. So, for instance, the passage of Newgrange points to the mound of Fornocks. There are two intervening hills that makes it absolutely, utterly impossible for Newgrange and Fornocks to be intervisible. So, while it points to Fornocks, you cannot see Fornocks from Newgrange. And this is where the likes of Frank Prendergast and people investigating these alignments separate the language. There is what you call an alignment, where the passage of a passage tomb is pointing to an astronomical event, a sunrise, a sunset, a moonrise, a moonset. There's then an orientation. Is it oriented so that it's facing another cairn? And there is a pattern, which is that a certain percentage of passage tombs in Ireland point to other distant passage tombs. But the other distant passage tombs are always at a higher elevation, exclusively, never lower down, which is fascinating. Fornocks from Newgrange is on a higher elevation, but not intervisible. Is that an accident? It may be. And that is where the jury is out. It's like, hang on a second, we can never say that, yes, it's definitively oriented. However, because there is a recognized pattern, one is inclined to think that there is. So I'm going to read some highlighted sections from, this is a paper by Frank Prendergast called Interpreting Megalithic Tomb Orientation and Citing Within Broader Cultural Contexts. So the entrances of many of the tombs clustered on Cairnban West, Cairnban, the westernmost of the hills, generally face towards Cairnban East at the centre of the complex, and its crowning passage tomb, Cairn T, which is interesting. Sorry, just moving forward. In Scandinavia, there's an orientation of passage tombs with sacred places far out in the landscape. Because of their skyline locations, in many cases, individual barrows, we're talking about Bronze Age barrows in Dorset here, and groups of barrows are thought to have been sited so as to afford multiple intervisible links, reflecting, quote, a considerable degree of control and deliberation, unquote, on the part of the builders. Extensive evidence of not only tomb clustering and intervisibility, but entrances facing other elevationally higher tombs in many cases has also been detected in the Irish passage tomb tradition by Prendergast. And that's another paper which at the time of this one wasn't published and which I haven't read and which I will be very interested to read. Analysis by Prendergast has also shown that where there is spatial overlap between court, portal, and passage tombs at a local scale, passage tombs are elevationally dominant over the other types without exception. So that's interesting. So, instances of where passage entrances are aligned at a target tomb are island-wide, so not just found in specific geographic locations. The phenomenon occurs at 52 of the 132 tombs with extant passages. The remaining 89 are unopened cairns or have their passages ruined/destroyed. In 49 of the 52 above cases, the target tomb/cairn is elevationally above that of the source tomb. So, sorry, I may have said a moment ago that they were all, well, 49 out of 52 is pretty much, it's something around 95%. We'll talk about fires in a second. I see a number of people mentioning fires. Remind me to come back to fires. That's important. Absolutely, we will be talking about fires. Where the target is a tomb with an extant passage, the orientation of those passages are never directed back to the source tomb, i.e., there is not a single instance of orientation reciprocation towards the elevationally lower source tomb, which is fascinating. So this is all very interesting, but with the caveat that there was a previous published statement saying that the Carrowkeel complex is not visible from Loughcrew. Let me just quickly skim over this and make sure that I'm not missing anything else that's sort of really relevant to what we're discussing. It's a very interesting paper, lots of detail, and of course Frank Prendergast is a man who has studied the orientation of passage tombs probably scientifically with all of the expensive equipment, probably more than any other, I think, archaeologist. I hope I'm not offending anybody there in saying that. Anyway, that is what he has said about the circumstances. Now, I suppose while it might be considered a discovery or an observation, the difficulty with it is, as I said, that I'm using powerful optical equipment with which to view. But the fires question is indeed very interesting. So we have the likes of Barbara Murphy asking, any evidence of fires on top of the cairns? We had earlier, Beth is in Tennessee. Hello, Beth. A very good afternoon to you. Anya Ryan, thank you very much. A flare or something. Yes. Smoke and light, reflections or flames, says Helen. So I did notice a fair number of comments about fire. For instance, Lucas, what about a fire? Now, Lar Dooley says that there is a fire pit in the cairn, in Cairn T. Now, I want to say that it is likely that more of Keshcorran is visible from the top of Cairn T, the summit of Cairn T, because Cairn T overlooks Cairn S, and it just follows that if Cairn S can see Keshcorran, that if you were to rise yourself up by 20 or 30 feet, you would see more of Keshcorran and possibly a little bit more of Carrowkeel. For obvious reasons, I did not climb Cairn T. You're not allowed to climb it. Climbers are causing damage to the cairns, so I didn't climb it. I'm not sure if Lars' observation or claim that there is a fire pit on the top of Cairn T has been confirmed by archaeological evidence, so I can't comment on that. However, the single best way to determine over these kind of distances, and bearing in mind that the intervening landscape barely allows you to see the distant cairn, the only way to determine definitively whether they're intervisible in the Neolithic, in my view, is indeed signal fires at night. The beacons on the summits. Think of the lighting of the beacons in Lord of the Rings and you have an idea. And that needs to be coordinated There's no phones or radio. You can't just ring up and say, yeah, Leo, come here, Leonithic, you light your fire there, and I'll get Stony McFlint to light the fire here, and sure, come here, let us know if it's visible. It doesn't work that way, you know. This has to have been worked out previously with extreme detail. How many nights from now are you? Two people have to, or two teams have to meet somewhere in the middle, or maybe they meet at Loughcrew or Sligo and agree to go to the other complex. It's almost 60 miles across the land in the Neolithic when there are no roads, you know. So it may have taken several days just for the one team to arrive at the other place. Then they have to coordinate, when are we going to light the fire, on what nights, and are we going to light them on successive nights because of the risk of fog, mist, rain, haze, etc., etc. You know, so this is, you know, you don't go up to Cairn S and every night of the year see Keshcorran. It doesn't work that way. I would estimate that you probably only see it through the binoculars again 1/3 of the nights of the year. I could be wrong. That's a guess, a rough guess. So signal fires. A flare is Helena Breen. Now, one thing that Gordon Farrell is in the house. Hello, Gordon. You're very welcome to the stream. Gordon is in the county of Longford, which we have been talking about as the intervening hills between Loughcrew and Keshcorran. One thing that Tom and I did notice when we were coming down from the hill, because by the time we came down Slieve na Calliagh, it was dark. And we did notice that there are beacons on some of the hills, on communications masts at quite a distance, flashing red or orange beacons. And that put the idea into our head that why don't we organise to get two teams, one team at Keshcorran and one team at Cairn S / Cairn T, preferably at Cairn S. But I've no doubt that from Keshcorran, in the morning time, when the sun is backlighting Loughcrew, I have no doubt that Cairn T will be visible. Cairn S, you see, is denuded, so it's not a lump on the hill. The lump on the hill is Cairn T, the hump, as it were, or the butter hump. You know, Cairn S would probably not be visible. So, yeah, the idea would be to get two teams and to have some sort of beacon. We can't light fires at prehistoric sites. People may not be aware of why, because lighting fires actually destroys archaeological evidence and stratigraphy, and it's very important not to light fires. Some idiot recently lit a fire at Slieve na Calliagh beside one of the cairns, believe it or not. So what we would intend to do is to locate or to acquire some sort of powerful beacons that may be powered by something like a car battery, something that we would have to basically carry up the hill, not an ordinary torch. We could use lasers, but the problem with lasers is lasers are dangerous, and it is dangerous to try and shine a laser across the landscape because you could strike it off airplanes and all the rest. And I believe that there's I'm not sure if there's a ban on them, but I don't think I would be willing to use one. I think I'd be better using some sort of a torch. Yeah, people are suggesting lasers, but as I say, lasers come with a hazard, and that is that first of all, you could accidentally, even at that distance, you could shine it into someone's eyes and cause them vision problems, damage to their eyesight. And then you have the added problem of aircraft, you know. Kathy May is saying it would be awesome if you had multiple drones with powerful lights to hover over each. Do you know what? That is actually not a bad idea. There are light fixtures that you can get for drones that little floodlights to light things at night, and I've seen photographers using them. So that's not a bad site. Donna, bad idea. Donna is asking, what would they be communicating about? I think actually what's happening here. So bear with me a second. Keshcorran, Sligo, Keshcorran, Carrowkeel is dated to the Middle and Late Neolithic. So it's a very, very good paper, which I'll be devoting next week's episode to. I don't want to spoil next week's episode. We are taking a little break from classical mythology, which deals with a DNA study of the bones retrieved from the Carrowkeel excavations, which took place in 1911. They studied, they did carbon dating on them, they did DNA, they did isotopic analysis, and found out loads and loads and loads. But the Carrowkeel complex was in use between approximately 3600 BC and around 3000 BC. That's when most of the burial, I think, takes place there. They are considered, and always have been, older than Loughcrew and older than the Brunebonia monuments. I think what's happening here, and which is why that the graphic for, let me just get that to show you, the graphic for the blog post and indeed for tonight's episode, if you just bear with me, had the words, something about ancestors. I can't immediately remember the phraseology. Distant relatives. Distant relatives. Play on the word distant. Distant as in a few generations ago, and distant as in 94 kilometers away. That is why I included that phrase in the graphic, because I think they were paying homage to the ancestors who are buried in the place where this culture, this passage tomb building culture, had really achieved its first zenith. It eventually achieved its ultimate zenith at Brunebonia, where we have the largest and the most lavish of the passage tombs of Ireland. And you have this site that is not exactly halfway between them, but certainly has some intervisibility between, we know now, Carrowkeel, and to the east, the Fornox complex and Tara, interestingly. And McMahon points out that some of the orientations to the east seem to be oriented towards Brunebonia, towards Fornox, and towards the Mound of the Hostages of Tara. There's no intervisibility with Newgrange, Nouth, and Douth, but there is intervisibility with Fornox, and there is with the Hill of Tara, which is fascinating. But I think that they're pointing back, they're acknowledging that these are the earlier monuments. And that is the place where we were a few generations ago, or maybe more. The problem is we've no carbon dates for Loughcrew. I'm not sure what happened to the bone material that would have been excavated in the 1860s at Loughcrew by Eugene Conwell. The excavated bone material from Carrowkeel was actually properly labelled, or almost properly labelled, by RAS McAllister and his team, who had done the excavations in 1911 and were later found in storage in Cambridge. And that is when this team of experts did their examination of them. I think this is all fascinating, really, really interesting. But the distant relative thing, I think that's what they were doing. They're acknowledging, a sight line back towards what you might call the homeland, where they were and where they had established themselves and built this enormous complex. But, as they moved east, they found that the land was better. And the land is better in Meath than it is in Sligo in terms of productive farmland. And these were farmers. And when they got to Brunebonia, they were basically amidst the best and most productive and most fertile land in Ireland. And surprise, surprise, that land offering them the largest surpluses enabled them to build the largest monuments. And that's what I think that's about, So at some point, when I get time, and really that's the principal thing, I will absolutely be involved. I'll be perhaps looking for some volunteers, 2 teams, for an experiment that may have to run over several nights because atmospheric conditions may not be favorable. We'll try to pick a night that is favorable, of course. Let me just catch up on the comments here. Brendan is saying small, powerful LED sky panels with a high lux output. Yeah, something that basically will work across a long distance, across 94 kilometers or nearly 60 miles of landscape. Jimmy McJimmyvich is, I think, putting himself forward as a volunteer. I don't think we'd have any problem getting volunteers when we put the call out. And the Calliagh legend of dropping cairns from her apron, says Nora, of course, which is the creation myth of Loughcrew, the Calliagh dropping the stones from her apron. Are any of the tombstones in the Boyne from Sligo? We don't think so. I'm almost sure no is the answer there. But I'm not a geologist. But from my reading of what the geologists have said, I don't think so. DNA is truly a benefit to all areas of historical studies, says Beth. It's unveiled a huge amount about the Neolithic that we didn't know even 10, 15 years ago, you know. Helena Breen is suggesting an air balloon. Yeah, we will figure out something. Definitely, Lucas, mirror ball. Why don't we go up to Keshcorran and Cairn S and have a nighttime disco and shine loads of beacons and torches into the sky and play some disco music? No. But we, you know, the lighting thing is important. Whatever it is, it has to have a high output, you know. And yes, air traffic not good for lasers, says Nora, or vice versa. Lasers not good for air traffic. Yeah, and Brendan says, could it be possible that signal fires were prepared and left at each cairn, which would only be lit on the death of a very important person? I mean, yeah, I mean, we're speculating, but yes. To my mind, what I suppose what we're saying here is that the only way in the Neolithic that the cairns are intervisible is a fire on or immediately in the vicinity of each cairn at night. Because during the day, it's really not, unless they had some sort of camera obscura or some sort of, you know, I've seen conspiracy theorists suggesting that, you know, they did have lenses in prehistory and they could make glass. I don't know. Until I see the evidence of that, I won't believe it, you know. Robin Edgar is joining us, and yeah, I hope you find it interesting when you catch up, Robin. Gary is offering his services. I told you we will have no problem. And Jimmy McJimmyvich is in Kells. Hill of Lloyd, interestingly, being visible from Cairn T, from the Chamber of Cairn T, looking across Hill of Lloyd towards the Hill of Slane. Speaking of intervisibility. Now, let me just, for a moment, read the blog post and make sure that I haven't missed any important details. Yeah, for years I had wondered about something. I'd long known that Cairn S, a cairn immediately to the northeast of Cairn T. Sorry, that's north. That should say northwest. There's a mistake. Okay, need to correct that. It has a passage facing towards the northwestern aspect. Its alignment towards sunsets at the time of Bealtaine and Lunasa had been documented in the 1980s by Martin Brennan and his team. Now, that's a fairly wide view. From what I've been able to observe, the sun is visible from the interior of Cairn S. Remember, it doesn't have a roof or a cairn over it. From the beginning of August, at least until the beginning of September. There's a full month where it's visible because the range of azimuths that's visible from inside the chamber is actually quite wide. So it's not specifically oriented on this one date of the year, but it is almost centrally directed at Keshcorran. The Keshcorran is just a tiny bit to the right of the center axis of the view. However, it is clear that the relatively short passage of Cairn S would possibly admit a range of sunset azimuths, and this is borne out by visual observations, which show that the sun is visible from the Y-shaped cairn chamber of Cairn S before the astronomical date of Lunasa, which is around 7th of August, until at least the last day of August. Previous visits by this author at the time of astronomical Lunasa had demonstrated that the sun was setting north or right of what might be considered the centerline view through the passageway. One beautiful aspect of the sunsets at Bealtaine and Lunasa as viewed from the chamber of Cairn S is the fact that shortly before setting, the sun is reflected in the waters of Lough Sheelin, some 16 kilometres or 10 miles to the northwest of Loughcrew. That is, I think, a beautiful visual spectacle, which may be part of a theme of visual spectacles at certain times of the year involving these alignments. Barbara Murphy saying there are papers exploring how far the US Army could use light and mirrors to send a message on the US-Mexican border back in the mid to late 1800s, as I remember. Yeah, there you go. So people have been trying to signal each other over long distances for a good long time. The center line of Cairn S actually points fairly accurately to the Carrowkeel complex of megalithic passage dunes in Sligo, some 90 kilometres or so distant. But that's just a coincidence, right? I could never be sure. It is certainly not unusual for a passage tomb to be oriented towards other passage tombs or tomb complexes, even if the sites at either end of the apparent alignment are not intervisible. So Frank Prendergast's paper, I think, only explores the intervisible ones. And I'm not sure what the official scholarly stance is on the non-intervisible ones. You know, are they accepted as alignments, or are they just disregarded? Take, for instance, the fact that 6 cairns at Loughcrew are oriented such that they point in the direction of Newgrange within an accuracy of 10.5 degrees, with the latter not being visible from any of those cairns. Jean McMahon wrote in 1994, that's the paper with the orientation axes that we showed, the chart that we showed at the beginning of the stream. Jean McMahon wrote in 1994 that 6 cairns in the Loughcrew complex face towards the Fornox complex in eastern Meath within 8 degrees accuracy, the latter being visible from Loughcrew. The fact that Cairn S points towards the Carrowkeel / Keshcorran complex, I'm not sure whether Keshcorran is 1 or 2 words. I've seen it used both. I think the townland is 1 word, but the cairn of Keshcorran is spelt as 2. I'm not sure. They are considered one large and related group in Sligo, can be easily demonstrated using Google Earth, as I did earlier on. It's not rocket science, as they would say. Whether any of the cairns at the Carrowkeel complex were actually visible from Loughcrew did not seem so easy to determine, which is the purpose of last Wednesday's trip. Even 20 years ago, I would train my telephoto lens on those distant misty mountains in the northwest that are visible from Slieve na Calliagh and take photos. But I'll be honest and admit that I never knew what mountains they were nor what county they were in. A deficiency in my knowledge, and I should have tried to find out before now. Thankfully, there are websites and smartphone apps that can show what distant peaks are visible from a particular eminence these days. For example, peakvisor.com and heywhatsthat.com. These sites seemed to indicate a very slim possibility of intervisibility between Slieve na Calliagh and Carrowkeel / Keshcorran. But when it comes to these matters, I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm reading from the blog post here. Knowing that the best time to see really distant and therefore faint and hazy hills and mountains was when the sun was low in the sky in that direction, I decided to set out for Cairn S at Slieve na Calliagh, armed with my 25 by 100 binoculars, which are a substantial observational tool. I had the company of friend and blacksmith Tom King on Gobba for the evening, the man who makes these. Also, you can buy these on Mythical Ireland, by the way, on the website if you're interested, mythicalireland.com. And we had the great fortune of a beautiful sunset and clear landscape. After a 10-minute walk from the car park to the summit, I quickly set up the giant binoculars on a tripod at Cairn S and began to scan the distant horizon above and beyond Loch Sheelin. On a clear day, Caoilcha Mountain, which straddles the border between counties and Cavan and Fermanagh, and thus between the Republic and Northern Ireland, as I said earlier, can be easily seen some 68 kilometres or 42.5 miles distant to the northwest. Sweeping away to the left from Caoilcha are a range of similarly misty mountains hills, which I think include the peaks of Benbrack in County Cavan, Ben Croy in County Leitrim, Aniran in County Leitrim, and the more distant Corrie Mountain, also in Leitrim, but close to the borders of Sligo and Roscommon. And as I mentioned earlier, I think it may be possible that we are also seeing Arigna in County, I think, Roscommon. This latter and a hill to its west have a smattering of wind turbines on them, which were visible through the binoculars and in images taken from Cairn S. Corrie Mountain lies at some 80 kilometres or 50 miles approximately from Cairn S. But I thought I recognised the wind turbines because I had seen them the previous Saturday while flying my drone at Carrowkeel and looking towards the northeast from Carrowkeel. Using the binoculars, I scanned slowly towards the west or left of where these distant misty hills with the wind turbines on them were. But these hills dipped down behind closer intervening hills. I didn't hold out much hope of seeing any of the Carrowkeel complex. But a moment later, I caught sight of something. Above some trees, on a quite distant hill, a very slender portion of the top of a faint and very distant ridge was visible, like a skim of butter, on a slice of bread. Wow, what was this? I looked for a moment and then noticed the clincher, a blip of sorts towards the right or north of this faint and distant ridge, and that is the circled item or object that I showed you earlier. That blip is in fact the lone cairn on the summit of the mountain of Keshcorran, the westernmost, the one labelled Cairn Q by McAllister, the westernmost and indeed the tallest of the mountains in the Carrowkeel Keshcorran complex. It lies at a distance of 94 kilometres, which is 58.5 miles from Cairn S. Incredibly, one cairn of the Carrowkeel Keshcorran complex is indeed visible from Slieve na Calliagh, but barely so. And conveniently, I think appropriately, and not coincidentally, it is the highest. And the fact that it is alone on that hill got me wondering, was the Keshcorran cairn built specifically for that reason? Because it was the only place in the complex that could be seen from Cairn S. But that's ridiculous, because Carrowkeel is almost certainly, I think without doubt, I think evidence will show when it becomes available, carbon dating, that Carrowkeel is older than Loughcrew. But it's fascinating nonetheless. And it is certainly not visible in any practical meaning of the word without the aid of either a telephoto lens or binoculars. And that got me and Tom talking. Did the builders of Loughcrew know that Keshcorran cairn was visible when they built Cairn S? I think the answer is yes. I would be almost certain that it is, without having any evidence to back that up. I can't imagine that they wouldn't have, you know. We now know through DNA, by the way, that one of the individuals buried in Newgrange was related to some of the individuals buried in Carrowkeel. So it's not like these are completely separate communities who never knew each other. They're probably the same, the descendants of the same community migrating across the country. Did they specifically orient it back towards their old homeland, the place of their ancestors? The Sligo monuments are older than their Meath counterparts. Were they pointing Cairn S back at Carrowkeel Keshcorran, where their progenitors had been buried decades and centuries before? And I'm asking that question without knowing the answer. And how would you determine in the Neolithic if two places at the very limit of visibility and very far away from each other could be seen one from the other? Now, Croagh in County Mayo, previously known as Croagh Igla, can be seen from the Carrowkeel complex. It is 90 kilometres from Carrowkeel. However, it's much more easy to see. It's not hidden behind intervening hills. It is a conical shaped mountain that is actually on a clear day quite easily discernible. The problem we have with Keshcorran is it's barely peeping out over the distant ridges, and therefore it makes it very, very, very difficult to see. One could say almost impossible to see with the naked eye, and that is the crux of the issue. That being said, given that there is evidence for orientation of passage tombs towards elevationally superior passage tombs at long distances, this hardly seems like a coincidence. Cairn S, as I said, one of two, definitely, and possibly three, less than 10% of the known cairns at Loughcrew pointing towards that whole 160-degree western horizon. And with a very specific alignment towards Carrowkeel / Keshcorran, which to my mind certainly doesn't seem like an accident or a coincidence, you know? And that was the hunch that brought me there was, well, is it visible or is it not? And actually, the very single best way to determine that is to bring a very, I could show you them, but they're actually in a press locked away. So I'll maybe bring them out in a future stream. But it seemed to me that the very best way to determine is to go up there on an evening where the atmospheric conditions are optimal and with optical equipment that gives you the best chance of determining. And to be honest with you, it did not take long. The the 25 by 100 binoculars are so powerful and accept so much light. They're bringing the light of 100 millimeter objectives, 2 of them, into the retina. They're collecting the larger the objective lens on a telescope or binoculars, the more light they gather, the brighter the image, depending on the magnification. It's a funny one. If you had a zoom binocular, say 50 times by 100 millimeter objectives, so 25 by 100 stands for 25 times magnification and 100 millimeter objectives. But the higher the zoom for the objective, the darker the image gets. So you need to kind of find the happy medium. You have 7 by 50 binoculars, 10 by 50. You have say 17, 18 by 70 and 20 by 80, 20 by 100, 25 by 100. So you can see there's a sort of a ratio, And now let me just catch up on some of the comments, because I think I've missed quite a few. There's a bit of a joke going on about a landing light, and Paul Gowan says, yes. Lucas says, if the orientation of the sites has anything to do with the passage of information, then there could well have been a camera obscura or some kind of immovable structure that was implemented. Look, to be honest, Lucas, that enters so far into the realm of speculation. Unless we find archaeological evidence that was something that might have been used, it really is, in my view, too speculative. Helen says, yes, sky reflections. Somebody's letting off fireworks. It's the 5th of September. Halloween is a good distance away yet. Sky reflections in the water would have been meaningful intersections of the worlds. Absolutely, yes. Brendan Byrne says, I wonder how many of the cairns were covered in white quartz, because in the presence of fire, then it might indeed become a mirror ball. That's an interesting question. We know that the cairns of Loughcrew were once, in fact, not in the distant past, covered in white quartz. Cairn Ban, the Cairn Ban, the westernmost hill, taking its name from the white cairns. That is so interesting, said Mickey, the DNA relationship. Yes, and next week I'm going to be talking to you about rites of passage, mortuary practice, population dynamics, and chronology of the Carrowkeel passage tomb complex, kind of Sligo, Ireland. Without meaning any harm to the authors of this paper, some of whom I know, I'm going to make it less academic and less wooden and a little bit more interesting, I hope. Not interesting, but I'm going to break it down into more understandable terms, I hope. They'll be watching, the authors of the paper will be watching, unmercifully going, he's really made an arse of that. Desiree, loving the visuals. It really helps those of us who have never seen the sites get already. Yeah, I think that's a very important aspect, is to be able to share these images, Interesting, says Chungus, the distance and the alignment. It is, I think it's fascinating. And look, I'm putting my own view out there, and my own view is that Cairn S is deliberately oriented towards Carrowkeel / Keshcorran, and I'm saying, in my view, my opinion is that the builders of Cairn S at Loughcrew knew that Keshcorran was visible. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that's an accident, Any pigeon trainers that can attach a small camera to. One thing that would be interesting would be to get a very large drone. There are very large drones that have SLR cameras with telephoto lenses on them, to fly that above Loughcrew or above Keshcorran and get really high resolution photographs of the distant horizon. That would be good. I think it's amazing, says Brendan, some of the cairn openings face east while some face west. It's almost as if there were two tribes, two different trains of thought with different beliefs. The interesting thing about, if you think about the alignment and the possibility of alignment towards Newgrange, that opens up, and we can only speculate. We can never know this for certain. But if some of the cairns at Loughcrew are oriented towards Brunabonia, it might upset the accepted chronology a little bit, which is why I'm inclined to think that they're not. It's difficult. If you think about it, if Loughcrew is older than Brunabonia, then Brunabonia doesn't exist when those cairns facing towards Brunabonia are built. So the idea of Cairn S pointing to Keshcorran makes sense in the chronology. Keshcorran is there first. Cairn S is built later. Cairn S points back towards the older monument. But the Brunabonia monuments are supposed to be younger than, we don't know. We've carbon dates for Carrowkeel. We've carbon dates for Newgrange, Nowth, and Newgrange and Nowth. We don't have carbon dates for Loughcrew. Were Loughcrew and Brunabonia, Sheed and Broga built at the same time? Maybe we'll find that out in the not too distant future. Thank you, Elaine. I'm glad that you found that interesting. I've certainly found it absolutely fascinating. Some announcements to make before everybody disappears. Trained Falcon, says Monica. Yes, indeed. Seamus Marr is saying hello. Seamus, a very good evening to you. If everyone sent Mythical Ireland €1 or $1 or a pound, we could fund a large drone. The drones that I'm thinking about are like the octocopters with very large payload. Like I'm thinking of something like the Canon or the Nikon cameras. Like for instance, my Nikon D3X. So this is just to actually might as well show you that now while we're here. This is not the camera I used on Wednesday because this is a pro body and it's very heavy. I used the D750, which is lighter. But this is in fact the telephoto lens with the 2x converter on it that I used to take the photos. So what you'd want is a drone that carries that, or something similar. And there's a lot of weight in that. Like that's the weight of a bag of sugar or a couple of bags of sugar probably. That's a couple of kilograms. So yeah, there you go. Interesting. Made me think of the bonfires they used to light across the hills on St. John's Eve. I think, Adrian, you've stumbled upon something very important here. The fires on the eminences, it's a part of the ritual of Ishnok. It's part of the ritual of Slane, where Patrick lights the Paschal fire, which I think is actually the continuation of an older, pardon me, pre-Christian ritual. Allow me to take an antihistamine, which I think is part of an older pre-Christian ritual, the lighting of fires on eminences, one visible from the other. You couldn't light the sacred fire until the Bealtaine of fire had first been lit at Ishnok, in the same way that you couldn't light the Easter fire, whatever the pagan or pre-Christian precursor was. You couldn't light the Easter fire until the High King had done so at Tara. And they have to be visible, so they're all being lit on heights. And I think that is the continuation of something that's been happening since the Neolithic. I genuinely do. I think you've stumbled upon something very important there. Paul is saying monuments were built in the line of an observation point and the rising and setting sun. So my question is, Sheed and Broga in the line of Loughcrew to sunrise? That's a very good question. I'm just going to quickly look at where Hill of Slane is, because Hill of Slane, if you're in the crouched in, you can't do it anymore because it's locked permanently. But if you're crouched in the chamber of Cairn at Loughcrew, looking out through the entrance, you're looking at the hill, directly at the Hill of Slane. You're looking across the Hill of Lloyd, but the Hill of Lloyd is slightly lower to the right. Cairn T. Let me just quickly draw a line on a map here from Cairn T, roughly to across the Hill of Slane. No, it's a little bit. Newgrange would be a little bit to the right, and not visible. But I'm wondering, the view is probably wide enough that maybe Newgrange is actually on the fringe of the view. Good question, Paul. One that I must come back to. Very good. Yeah, my mom used to say that they light them in the highest point across the islands in the Gaeltacht. Yeah, they still light the St. John's Eve fire in Donegal and on Tory Island and in such places. Yes. Who else did I miss? Joe is saying Ben Bulman is the remaining trunk of giant tree. Ben Bulman, the mountain is the remains of a tree. I'm not following, Joe. Not quite following you there. Can they be hired or chartered? Yeah, I could hire a drone company to do that. Absolutely, yes. Fascinating stuff. I want to tell you briefly about. I'm giving several talks as part of the September Walking Festival here in the Boyne Valley on the 21st of September. I put the details on a post on the Mythical Ireland social media in the past 24 hours. The mythological murals in Drogheda, that is Wednesday the 20. Just go and double check the dates. Wednesday the 21st of September at 6 p.m. On Saturday, the 24th of September, I'm giving a walking talk on the Hill of Tara about the myths and legends of Tara. That is at 3 p.m. And on the 25th of September, I'm giving a talk on the myths and legends of Brunabonia. We're going to be allowed into the Monument of Nowth and Douth. We're not going to be allowed into Newgrange. We'll be viewing that from the road. But we'll be starting that tour at Brunabonia, the visitor centre, allowing us the use of secure parking, which is brilliant. That's a long walk. I think the total distance covered by that is 12 kilometres. That'll be a long walk. We'll be walking first from the visitor centre to Douth, talking about the myths and legends there, going to Nowth, from there walking to Nowth. We'll get an official short overview of the archaeology of Nowth from an OPW guide, and then I'll be talking about the myths and legends. From there, we walk to Newgrange and talk, looking at Newgrange from the road, as I have often done on my live streams there, and then back to the visitor centre. Details and tickets at boynevalleytrails.ie is the website. boynevalleytrails.ie, all one word. Now, I know when I was checking there shortly before I began the live stream, there is a problem with the website at the moment, which I hope will be fixed very quickly. I hope that you can see it. Maybe it's just from here. What was the other announcement? Interesting. That has happened again. That happens every so often. Apologies, folks, that you may have lost the broadcast for a moment. Why is that not coming up then? As it now says Classical Mythology Part 3, which was last week's, which shouldn't be the case. I don't know why that changes. Apologies for that. I have no idea what happened there, folks. Anyway, that is, further announcements. Keep an eye on the social media. Don't forget that if you want to support all the work that happens in Mythical Ireland, the very, very best way that you can do it is to become a patron of Mythical Ireland at patreon.com/Mythical Ireland. Patrons are treated at various levels to treats and extras and lots of stuff. For instance, they get first view of many of the films and podcasts. They get first view of a lot of photographs. I'm sharing my latest book page by page with patrons, and there's a lot. Yeah, I know the screen went black. That has happened occasionally, and if you look at the description at the top, it has changed to episode 192, Classical Mythology. It should say 193, Loughcrew Keshcorran alignment. I have no idea why that happens. It seems to be a bit of a recurring problem. Anyway, I think that is it. We're an hour and a half in. If there are any further questions, please do feel free to reach out by email. It's mythicalireland@gmail.com. And keep an eye out. I'm expecting to make, I hope, an announcement about the Mythical Ireland calendar, which will shortly go on sale. The 2023 calendar is pretty much ready to go to the printers. And the republication of Land of the Ever-Living Ones, my novella, which has been out of print for quite some time. I'm hoping in the next month or so to organise a reprint of that. Keep an eye on, if you're on Facebook, it's Mythical Ireland. If you're on Instagram, it's Mythical Ireland. If you're on Twitter, it's Mythical Ireland. Keep an eye on the blog, on the website as well, where we'll make announcements. Your study looks so cozy, says M Days. Yes, indeed. I think at this stage there are 1,200 books. Paul says many wheels whirring. Yes, indeed. Lots to think about. But as I say, primarily we have, I think, finally put to bed the discussion that we can reverse the statement previously made in an academic publication that the Carrowkeel Keshcorran complex is not visible from Slieve and Calliagh. We now know that it is, however, with the caveat that it is on the limit of visibility. Laurie, thank you very much. Glad you enjoyed yourself. Please do come back. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you'll get notifications of future live streams and videos. Really very interesting. Yes, Adrian, I'm just completely fascinated by all this. I do think it's really amazing. And I think the more I look at what was achieved in far off Neolithic times without the technology is just quite incredible. And Cathy May sums it up very well. We may understand more and more about our ancestors. Yes, indeed. Jimmy is saying, when I was a child, there was a structure in a townland called Siddenrath, the slain side of Kells. If of the same time, maybe it was a link between Loughcrew and Newgrange. Yeah, I believe they found evidence for a giant enclosure around Hill of Lloyd, which they think may be Bronze Age or even late Neolithic. So it'd be interesting to see what crops up there in terms of any dates from future excavations. Yes, indeed. A very good night, and please do, as I say, stay in touch, and do please consider becoming a patron. Watch very closely over the next couple of weeks. There'll probably be there's a flurry of activity coming in relation to walks, in relation to publications, particularly, and maybe some news about the website. And that's all I'm going to say about that for now. Don't forget, I haven't forgotten that we have to raffle the wonderful K67 pendant made by Tom King. At the moment, this is the one and only in existence. The plan was that we were to have another Mythical Ireland gathering, a community gathering, and we were going to raffle this on the day to all the people who have bought something on the website. The problem is that I got sick during the summer and time overtook me, and I just got very busy with everything. I wasn't able to organize another community gathering, but we will. Anybody who's ordering stuff on the website, you will be entered into a raffle, and that raffle will be held before too long for this wonderful item. Fascinating broadcast, says Tom King. Speaking of the maker of said item, thank you so much, Anthony and friends. This is particularly enjoyable considering first-hand experience on the sacred hill of Loughcrew. What a pleasure. Well, Tom, it was a great pleasure to have your company, and of course, you helped carry some of the equipment, which was, like part of the reason I asked you. It's like, oh yeah, Tom will help carry those big tripod, or that big binoculars up the hill. But how wonderful it was to watch the sun go down on what was a glorious evening, and then with the observations done and dusted, and a great celebration of success, as it were, and confirmation, to actually sit up there and to be supping tea and eating fruitcake as the twilight descended and the stars came out. It was just magical. It really was. Very glad to be able to share it. Yes, days I had COVID and I had a chest infection. I was sick for about 5 or 6 weeks of the summer, so I was really under the weather for a while. Anyway, I hope you think and know at this stage that I think I'm back to normal functioning again. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's been a truly wonderful pleasure and an honor. Next week, we're talking about the DNA and the isotopic analysis of the remains found at Sligo, at Carrowkeel, Keshcorran. I absolutely know you, like I, will find that fascinating. Perhaps the following Monday, we will return to the topic of classical mythology. Don't worry, we can come back to that. But I'm wondering if in 2 weeks' time it is close to the equinox, which it is, that we may dedicate that episode to the equinox. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, thank you all for watching. Ikawa, good night. Kolosov, sound sleep for when you do eventually go to bed. There's somebody watching in New Zealand. It's a while before they get to bed. Slán go fóill, which means bye for now. And most importantly, Tog go bugay, which means take it easy. See you next week.